What's going on, guys? This is Codex here, back again with another video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Monster Hunter World. So, making a review for Monster Hunter World wasn't easy. That's mainly because Monster Hunter World is a masterpiece. In my opinion, it could be the closest thing you could get to perfection. So, saying Monster Hunter World is a masterpiece or the closest thing you could get to perfection, I know it's a bold statement. I've went back and forth for multiple days deciding on the main title of this video and the main focus. All in all is what feels comfortable to me when describing this word in one sentence is it's a masterpiece. So I'm going to explain to you why Monster Hunter World is a masterpiece. So dissecting this Monster Hunter World review is not easy because there's multiple aspects to consider when talking about why Monster Hunter is so good. We could talk about the hunting experience alone, we could talk about the combat, we can talk about the armor system, we can also talk about the boss fights, we also can talk about the multiple ways you can enjoy the multiplayer section of the game, and we can also talk about how it's even possible to play this game from start to finish without needing an online connection, and everything will just work perfectly. The first thing I feel confident about is the monster hunting experience. The maps in Monster Hunter World are really beautiful. The scenery available throughout the worlds in Monster Hunter, they are really beautiful and they're so breathtaking. You can see based upon the footage how good and actually detailed the worlds are. And then that adds a lot more extra immersion when hunting throughout the game. Each map available in Monster Hunter World plays a whole lot more different from the next one. Good example, the ancient forest has a lot of trees, has a lot of jungle, thick vines, and you can use those vines to your advantage when hunting monsters. Another example, the wastelands. Pretty much it's this whole dry desert area, and that has like a ton of rocks and short cliffs. And pretty much you can use those rocks to bang the monster's head so that it falls down on its knees and pretty much gives you a long opening so that you can do your combos, plant bombs, or skill on it if you want to, or even trap it and or capture. So all in all, the maps in Monster Hunter, even though there might be closed off biomes, pretty much each one plays different and it has a lot of detail in it, and pretty much you are gonna enjoy each one and you will notice how each map plays from one another. So maps aside, the hunting experience is not just only composed of the maps. Another thing that plays a big factor when it comes down to the hunting experience in the Monster Hunter game is pretty much the monsters themselves. I will say this, they are perfectly animated, they are perfectly detailed, and each monster is not repetitive from the last one. You can trust me. You can pretty much fight a Pookie, which likes to spit poison at you, but then if you fight a Kuliaku, likes to even throw rocks or sometimes use a boulder to its own advantage. And pretty much the boulder doesn't just act as a weapon for the Kuliaku, it also acts as a shield, because you as the hunter wouldn't be able to hit through a boulder then slice a monster into it. You have to work around the boulder, and then the Pookie, pretty much you won't have to face it head on because it'll put you in a big advantage. And with the Pookie, it's not ideal fighting it head on because it'll spit poison at you and then you'll take tick damage, and pretty much you're gonna have to fall back for a few seconds, which is crucial time to just antidote up and heal up, and then you can go back and fight the Pookie again. And those are just two monsters that I named off of the top of my head, and pretty much the detailed explanation that I just gave you just came from heart. And the monsters in Monster Hunter World are really good fighting against. Each type of monster has its own strengths, has its own weakness, and it has a different way of handling threats. And which leads me to my next topic of the hunting experience, is the statement, there are many ways to kill a cat. and the same applies for you when you're hunting these monsters. You can take care of the monsters in multiple ways, and the monster can take care of you in multiple ways. Sometimes these monsters have like packs and they could gang up on you, and then sometimes these monsters are more so rivals, and then they can get into turf wars. And sometimes it's like a Godzilla versus King Kong situation, and most of the time being sandwiched in between that fight is not a good idea. So the main chunk of the hunting experience in Monster Hunter World is how you as the player get to deal with the monster you're instructed to slay or capture. Whether you capture the monster, whether you slay it, could determine whether you're gonna get bonus rewards if you capture it, or you're just gonna slay it and then you get the regular amount of rewards. So explaining the weapons and armor system is really simple. First of all, it's not overly complicated and it's not overly simplified. It's just right there in the middle. When it comes down to weapons per se, the only thing you have to focus on early game is your attack damage. That's all. But then as you progress later on in the later game, or end game if I may say, you will have to slightly divert or pivot into doing elemental damage. And elemental damage can come in a few different ways, like your water, thunder, fire, and also ice. Those can be beneficial when facing other monsters, because some monsters are very weak to poison and you can take advantage of tick damage. Some monsters don't react nice to thunder and you can take advantage of thunder damage, and then some monsters just can take fire or ice or water. So in the end, if you want to focus on attack damage, you're just gonna have one simple weapon, and if you want to focus more on elemental damage, you're gonna have a wide variety of weapons to use. So when acquiring multiple versions of the same weapon or multiple weapons, you are going to have to go into a sort of grindy system for the weapons and armor system, because you have hundreds of armor pieces that overlap with one another when it comes down to material gathering. Most of the time when you want that specific set armor, you're going to have to re-hunt the same monster. So if you want to upgrade your weapons and your armor sets, you're going to have to re-hunt the monsters you've been hunting throughout the game. And I will say it never got repetitive for me, because pretty much I enjoy the game, I enjoy the experience, and spending an hour or two just grinding the same monster, it flew like a breeze, because it's really fun just hunt monsters and not have a problem while doing it. Besides the weapons and the armor system, there's also other aspects in the armor system that can help min-maxers have their own personalized build for personalized situations. And I will say, throughout my whole experience grinding multiple weapons, grinding multiple armor sets, repetitively hunting the same monster for an hour straight just so that you can get that rare drop, for me it never felt boring, because pretty much I enjoyed the game. And I know I've been saying this throughout the video, but Monster Hunter World is one of those games where you can just spend tons and tons of hours and not have a problem with it, because of how freaking good it is to just keep playing. So Monster Hunter World has 14 different kinds of weapons, and each one has its own strength and its own weakness. Sometimes you might get a really good weapon, but then it will be lacking in some areas, and pretty much you as the player will have to try to find ways to work around those drawbacks of said weapon. So speaking from experience, whatever weapon you will pick pretty much will have its own strength and its own weakness. It's up to you using the strengths effectively, and it's up to you trying to maneuver or overcome those weaknesses. When I first started playing Monster Hunter World, pretty much I was a bowgun user, and I ain't gonna lie, the bowgun's really great, but I personally didn't like the fact that I was slightly further away from the fight, and I also didn't like how little damage at the time that the bowgun was outputting. So then I swapped from the bowgun to the charge shield. So when I was using the charge shield, I did love how much damage I was dealing But the biggest problem with the charge shield is pretty much you're gonna have to reload the freaking vials all the time. In other words, it's like an overheat mechanic. And eventually, I just didn't like maneuvering around the heat mechanic. And then after that, I swapped to the switch axe. And the switch axe was really good when it came down to damage output. The amount of drawbacks the switch axe when compared to the charge shield was pretty much okay for me. I was fine walking slow when using axe mode, and I was also fine having to swap to the katana mode to be able to deal tons of elemental damage. For me, that was the perfect spot when it came down to being able to deal tons of damage and also being able to manage the weaknesses. And then eventually I moved from the switch axe and then I went to the dual blades. So using the dual blades was really awesome and really fun, but the biggest problem with the dual blades is that they deal average damage. They don't deal a lot of damage unless you want a specific dual blade and you kind of tweak it to deal tons of damage. But the biggest issue with the dual blades is the comboing. Eventually you're going to be locked in animation and your whole combo will be pretty much being wasted away on thin air. And once you're locked in animation, pretty much you're going to be easy picking for the monster. And then now currently I'm using the sword and shield, of which it does have a few drawbacks, but those drawbacks that the sword and shield has, I can live with it. And another quick tip that I can give you from personal experience is that find two weapons that you feel like you can maneuver around its drawbacks and effectively use its strengths, and then use both and swap around based upon the situation you're in. So if you have been on the fence on buying Monster Hunter, pretty much rest easy. This is a wonderful game and you will pretty much enjoy every single moment of it, whether you encounter tough bosses or whether you encounter the easiest ones. You are going to enjoy the experience this game has to offer. So that is about it, people, and I would love to say, if you made it to this part of the video, I really do appreciate it. And if you did enjoy the video, please smash the like and leave a comment explaining to me why you love Monster Hunter if you are a veteran of the game. And if you are new, just let me know in 5 hours of playtime, how did it go? Because I'm pretty sure you guys are going to enjoy it. So at the end of the day, I would like to sign off and say thank you for watching the video. This is Codex. Peace.